window will be the draft?
Yeah.
Oh, it kind of does a different thing.
Okay, well, guys,
either way, that's fine.
Welcome to the UEFA Dynasty Podcast, episode 9, or the second episode of the 2020 season. We're underway. We're in the second round. It's been a crawl, but no one has anything else better to do, so this could take as long as we really need it to be. I'm your host, Erik of Wolfsburg, also a commissioner in the league, and joining with me tonight, I have our regular co-host, Fred of Hercules. Fred, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. Just my week's over. I got a long weekend like everyone else. That I only realized that the holiday coming up is the Memorial Day. I didn't realize that was already here. It feels like it's still the end of March to me.
Yeah, and the sports not being here, I think, aids to that. Like, it's May, it's almost June already. It's unbelievable. And I'm excited to announce that we have, for the first time in the podcast history, Donny of Atalanta is here to join us. Donny, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good as well. The holiday also snuck up on me, so I took today off to make it a nice 4-day weekend. And I think I accidentally dropped the picture of my home improvement project in the wrong thread earlier, so everybody got a preview of the mess I got myself into today. So that's our weekend, drafting and making a butcher block countertop. Hopefully wrapping them both up through the weekend.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great time to do some home improvement stuff. Meanwhile, after me mowing the lawn today, I'll probably do nothing else this weekend but lay around. So who am I kidding?
Nice.
But we might as well just get right into it. We want to start talking about the draft where we left off on Monday, and that was around the 116 pick, right, guys?
It was right in that range, yeah.
So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the draft recap ahead of us. And so at this point in the draft, everything kind of went copies 1, 2, and 3. And while there's definitely some tiers, and I see why teams went like that, I don't think I've ever seen a draft go so the same copies in the same exact spot without any deviation. But just to quickly recap, we'll do the first 6 picks here. We had Dobbins go to Spurs, Hercules, and Sassuolo. I mean, Udinese, Spurs, and Hercules got Dobbins, and then followed up by Swift going to Sassuolo, Roma, Udinese again. So again, chalk picks. I think they were kind of in the same tier, but Dobbins has been flying up boards lately. We'll start with you, Fred. Do you think you have Dobbins over Swift in your rankings?
I took him over to Swift right here. So yes, I actually traded up to get this pick, and when after 115 made their pick, I tried to get it. Luckily, it was accepted, and I got the guy I wanted. I like him a lot better than Swift for 2 reasons. One, I live here in Baltimore area now, so I've seen what that team and offense look like, and maybe not so much for 2020, but going forward, I think Dobbins is going to be the Ray Rice kind of guy for that team. And on the other side of the fence, I also used to live in Detroit, and I've seen how they destroy running backs year after year. So it was a pretty clear and obvious choice for me there.
Okay, and so what did you give up in order to get this pick? I'm looking for the trade graphic right now.
Oh, you want to put me on the spot? I don't remember. I think it was like either added a second round pick or swapped second round picks to move up.
And you traded with Dobbins? Dobbins. You traded with Justin of Hanover?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I think I found it.
Transactions.
You gave up 220 for it.
So 220 and my current pick, right? And so I moved up from it was like 120. So I moved up 4 spots.
Yeah, so Justin was willing to and who did Justin wind up taking if we look at the draft recap? He wound up getting Akers with that pick at 120. So he got a second round pick to drop down from Dobbins to Akers.
And from his point of view, if you don't care about these 3 guys, or they're all in the same tier, you don't have one ahead of the other one, getting an extra second round pick to get anyone in that tier, great move.
Yeah. Yeah, so I actually like that trade for you too. And also, like you said, even if the talent is similar, I do like Dobbins just because of his situation. Now there was a lot of mouths to feed in Baltimore, so I don't know. Ingram's not going to be there forever, so it could develop into a nice situation. Donny, do you have any thoughts on Dobbins versus Swift here?
Yeah, I like the Dobbins pick quite a bit better as well. Ingram has been around for quite a while. Who knows? They could trade him, let him go, not pay him, what have you. If Dobbins starts to perform there, I think you got to like a running back on that team with the linebackers just absolutely frozen by the idea of Lamar Jackson taking off. I think it really sets up a nice running back there, and they drafted him high, so they're going to use the guy. I think he'll have value there, and I don't want any part of Detroit outside. I think Galladay.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern is it's a crowded room, and that he may not break out or do what I want him to do right away as a rookie. I was trying to think a little further ahead than that on the move.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Donnie. With the, when teams are going against Baltimore, they're not thinking how are we stopping Dobbins. They're thinking how are we stopping Lamar Jackson because he can do basically what Eli Manning did in the playoffs with the David Tyree catch is what Lamar Jackson does on every play. He makes defenders miss even when they have him dead to rights. But yeah, so
Sure.
Moving on. Now we have Swift as the 104, and I know we talked about how shitty his situation is. Anyone in a spot where you're picking fourth in the draft, is there anyone else you would take over Swift because that situation is so poor?
Swift went 6th here, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking standard leagues. In Superflex, it would be 6th in this case.
But so I'm sorry. Is there anyone I would take?
If you were sitting at 118 and you couldn't trade up, Fred, would you take?
Right. Let me see who went right here. I would have a very hard time. I would be looking to trade back. At 118 if I missed out on Dobbins, because I think those 6 picks, the Swift and Akers picks, are all identical to me. I think I would want one of them ahead of the receiver or quarterback next. If you can scroll down, you can see the next picks are Lamb, Judy, and Herbert. I put the running backs a tier above those guys in my opinion. So gun to my head, I'm stuck. I think I'd probably take Akers.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying. I love Swift out of Georgia. I mean, they produced great running backs, and he certainly looked real good there. But I don't know what Detroit's going to wind up doing with their running back. If they're going to do a split back, and Stafford really didn't get to play the second half of last year, so they're kind of a mess offensively. And I think that's why it's talent versus situation. And I would still take Swift because I still think the talent prevails, but I would definitely be worried about production the first couple of years. Donnie, you have any thoughts on this?
Oh, I think I'm in alignment there. I think they both walk into a crowded room with another guy who could command a good chunk of the work. Definitely in the first year. I mean, maybe the situation is a touch better in LA just with the overall offense getting near the red zone a little bit more often, but I still think Swift is a premium talent over the two, and I think I would still lean talent because the situation is close enough for me. So I would have taken Swift there.
Yeah. So I think we're all on the same page with Swift, and we'll move down in the draft. The next 3 picks were Akers. After that, the final 2 Lamb picks. Then we had the 3 Herbert picks and the 3 Judy picks right after. And we'll stop there because that's where I see the tier break. But we did have all the copies go of each player before the next one started, besides the super early Lamb at 107. So when I'm looking at this, the first thing that catches my eye is Cam Akers going 7th overall on a super flex consistently. He went to the 3 107 spots there. And the reason why I took him, and I had the last one, well, it was the last copy, and I was in such a need for running back at the time that I was looking at adding Lamb or Judy or a quarterback I didn't need, and it just wasn't worth it for me. But I don't have Akers ranked this high. I would have took Lamb if I wasn't worried about roster construction. Do you guys agree with the Akers pick here? I will start with you this time, Donny.
Yeah. I have the running backs a tier above the wide receivers by a pretty hefty amount, to where even if I was needing a wide receiver, I think I would take him or try to trade the pick, obviously, or try to trade the pick or trade him after I took him, one way or the other, because I see a pretty big step up in value from these whatever top 5 running backs down to even the top of the wide receivers.
All right, Fred, how about you?
Did you move into this pick, or were you just on the clock when it got to 122?
I was just on the clock. This is like my last first round standing.
I have no idea what your roster looks like, but just from a value perspective, I think Akers is the better choice, at least in the short term. You come May of 2021 or 22, they may have flopped ranking by then, or other things significantly changed. But for now, if you're just looking straight value of the draft pick, Akers is my choice, at least.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys, I'm in the lone corner with not thinking that Akers should go here. I think it's part of it goes down to his not flashing in college. Like everyone thought he would. He was like the universal one running back, and I don't know if he got injured or if he just didn't play as well. I didn't do as much research as I usually would, but he didn't grab the attention of the world like everyone thought he would.
Yeah. I think the difference for me is that the top 2 receivers kind of knocked each other down, where in terms of who wants which one of those receivers. Some people like one, some people like the other, and they both kind of then fall down below the running back to me, especially in a multi-copy league, when you can say, if I don't love either one of those guys, I don't care which one I get, but it's going to definitely be after one of those running backs.
And so I see your point, and I think everyone, for the most part, the dynasty community is leaning that way. So maybe I'm not seeing it clearly, but Matt did comment in, our other commissioner and usual co-host, and he was one of the owners that took Dobbins, and he said Dobbins' lack of year 1 production was my only hesitation. Personally, he also just chimed in with another one. He likes Lamb over Akers, so I'm not in the complete minority there. So that's good to hear. But Matt, I don't think you should be that even worried, because the people that went behind him are not locked in for year 1 production. Everybody's slotted into a backup role or a timeshare at best, or a receiver 2, receiver 3 role. But moving on, because we don't want to get stuck on Akers all day. And if there's time at the end of the podcast, Fred, we'll go into my team. When I took Akers, my running backs that I had on the roster at that time were Devonta Freeman, Marshawn Lynch, and Jordan Wilkins.
I think the running back is almost a guarantee for you, or almost a 100% need for you when you're looking at that.
Right. Okay. So going into the final 2 Lamb picks, so Lamb, Herbert, and Judy. I'm going to group those just for discussion's sake. I have Lamb a bit over Judy. Herbert, I'm undecided on. If I was in this spot, I think it would really come down to my roster, but I think I would take Herbert after Judy. Donny, do you have any preference when it comes here? I'm just making sure you didn't have a pick here, did you? No.
No, no, I picked that second spot. I actually the only comment I can make on this section here is I think after that teardrop of those running backs, that's where I personally would have felt comfortable taking the 3 quarterbacks in a row. And I'm sure I'm an outlier there. Obviously, you look at the way I drafted the quarterbacks last year, and maybe based on this league's valuation of them, I need to tweak it just a little bit based on just their market value here. But on my board, right after the running backs and right before the receiver run started is where I had boom, 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 the 3 quarterbacks.
Right. I've seen it both ways, and it just depends on the guys you're drafting with.
Yeah. I think in this league, I'm going to have to overpay in my own book if I'm going to compete. And whether that be overdraft or overpay in a trade to catch back up. I mean, sure, Roethlisberger is back, and obviously Foles could win the job in Chicago, but you need better than that to seriously compete. So I'm probably going to have to overpay in my own book to compete in this league for sure.
Yeah. And
well, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, yes and no, because I've won a super flex league with Matt Stafford and Blake Bortles. So one solid quarterback and one, replacement level guy who can just put up the 20 points or, on a great week or, go crazy, when they're losing.
Yeah. And Donny, you bring up a good point. When you look at Superflex, so this is a Superflex league with 16 teams, essentially. So every starting quarterback is pretty much going to be started unless they're truly bad or, in a horrible situation. But you certainly could have got by with Big Ben and Nick Foles if they were healthy. Obviously, you didn't have any depth, so that hurts you. And then them both getting injured really hurt you. But, if you have the supporting cast, you can get by with, like Fred said, with 2 stars, no problem. You got to have 2 starters, in my opinion. But you don't need Mahomes and Lamar Jackson to win a Superflex league.
Absolutely.
It helps.
Sure, of course. Having the best players does help. But just to give you another idea, late in the year last year, when I realized I had a push that I could actually finish in the top in the Bundesliga, the rest of my team wasn't that good. I had a bunch of firsts. I did decide to trade for 2 quarterbacks cheaply, Gardner Minshew and Eli Manning. I was competitive. I mean, I should have traded if I didn't want to make the full push, and I could have, but I chose not to. I just didn't have the supporting cast around them. Like I had AJ Brown was my only good receiver, really, or consistent receiver, and Aaron Jones my only running back. But I don't think you're screwed by having Big Ben and Nick Foles, even though you didn't go quarterback. But we will get to your team, Donnie. Let's move on.
All right.
So you had Herbert before the receivers. Fred, you also had Herbert before the receivers here?
Yeah, and if I recall, I was trying to move up into one of these spots once Herbert started going off the shelves. My next pick was 132, so I had only a little movement that I needed to make, but I just didn't like what it was going to cost me to move up even 4 or 5 spots. Based on who I think Justin Herbert is. I like him. I don't know that I like him more than who I ended up getting long term.
Okay. And I guess my concern with Judy here is what is Denver going to look like? There's so many question marks. New running back, a quarterback on his second year in Drew Lock, and the new running back is Melvin Gordon. And then you have Judy entering a receiver core that already features Cortland Sutton, who's shined, in my opinion. So it's a weird situation in Denver. I can see it going any way.
Yeah, I think they just went a little ham on their offense, and just they're going to let it play out and see who takes a hold.
I drafted Hamler too, didn't they?
They did, and they drafted Albert O as well. So they've got even a tight end who conceivably could compete with Fant for touches and reps. So they've got skill players all over the place. I still don't know if they want to be a running team or a throwing team or what they're going to look like. If they're just trying to keep up with Kansas City, if they're going to try and play defense and run out the clock. Do they even know what they have in lock?
I'm not certain. Donnie, do you have any thoughts on that Denver offense?
It's almost as though Aikman is building the team that he wished he had when he was a quarterback and just pushing all the chips at lock, saying, if you can't do it with this, you don't belong in the NFL.
You mean Elway?
Yeah, sorry, Elway.
Yeah, you might have a point. Yeah, it's certainly nothing's worked out for him before, so maybe he's trying something new.
Yeah, the only success they've really ever had was when he fell ass backwards into Peyton Manning.
True. And that awesome defense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he built that. They built that. But on offense, he has been a disappointment for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So moving on to the next two chalk picks that we had the 3 copies of Jefferson, including Fred taking Jefferson at the first spot, and then Rigor going in the next spots. I personally think I have Rigor a little ahead of Jefferson, but it's close. But I think this is right, spot on, that the owners got right. This is the next tier of these 2 receivers right after Judy and Lamb. Fred, why don't you take us through why you took Jefferson over Rigor?
I'm not convinced that Philadelphia is the landing spot that everyone wants it to be. He's talented. He's going to be good. I just think the opportunity for Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, given what he does, what their offense looks like, what Kirk Cousins wants to do with the ball, and with Thielen getting older, I guess the bigger thing to me is over the last couple of years, I've started paying more attention to the guys who get touted as being better route runners than 50-50 catchers, or guys who win on the outside or just fly past you. So that was the tiebreaker for me. Was Justin Jefferson appears to be able to create separation and beat people that way.
Yeah, and that's a good point with Philadelphia being kind of a bad landing spot receivers that we've seen. Nothing really being produced there. Donnie, do you agree with Fred's choice with Jefferson over Rigor here?
Yeah, I've got Jefferson higher. I know there's the concern in the chat, kind of went back and forth on this yesterday or day before, whatever it was, that Jefferson did not play primarily in the slot until last year, but his production doubled when they moved him there. So the question is, how productive is he going to be? Because Minnesota's obviously going to move him back outside. Is he going to be able to eat like he did this last year in college against NFL caliber outside corners? And I think he can. But I think that's probably why he is just a touch lower than he could have been if he didn't. I think it was like almost 80% of his snaps are from the slot last year, and he was being drafted as an outside receiver. So I still like him above Reagor here, but it's definitely something to see how bad he gets beat up by those outside corners.
And I had to check the receipts on this one. This was another guy I traded up to get. I had the 134 pick, and I threw my 320 at the owner of 131 in order to take it from him, because I didn't want to take the chance that there was another run and all 3 Jefferson copies went. It could very well have been that Wolverhampton liked Reagor better anyway, and would have taken him at 131 and started a 3-player run, and I would have gotten Jefferson anyway. Just wasn't willing to risk it.
Yeah. And my bias definitely shows I like TCU as a team, so anyone coming out of TCU always catches my eye, and I hate the Vikings, so there's 2. One thing
there's 2 Vikings fans picking there too.
Oh, that's true.
32 and 33 are both Vikings fans.
And that's Inter Milan and Bayern Munich. We're taking them.
Yeah, so that's something I did not know going into that. It would have made the choice even easier for me to try to move up if I had.
Yeah. And so Yeah, Jefferson does have the clearer path because Thielen is getting older, and they got rid of Diggs, so they really didn't address the position yet, other than Jefferson. So he definitely seems like the answer that they think will be good for them. But let's move on. We now start getting to the not taking 3 copies all at once, which is the more interesting part of the draft, in my opinion. We'll go through the first 5 here. After that, at 137. Valencia takes Keyshawn Vaughn, and then Granada takes Michael Pittman at 138. And then the next 3 picks is a run on Henry Ruggs at 139 through 141. To me, this is where the tier expands, and you could take anyone you like. So maybe we should go even to more guys, because I don't think I would have took any of those 3 guys. But Pittman was kind of a late bloomer. Keyshawn Vaughn, I don't even know where he went to college. Do you guys have opinions on these guys?
Go ahead, Fred.
I was letting you go first. So the only guy I really have an opinion on is Henry Ruggs, and he was an avoid at all costs for me. And even if he would have dropped to the end of the first round, I wouldn't have been surprised. And it's just not. But let's just say burned too many times by that type of player, in my opinion, that he's not going to amount to what I want him to be for the cost. I see that Granada took Pittman ahead of any of the other receivers, so he obviously liked situation and talent there in Indianapolis. I can't argue with that. People kind of spread the 3 picks of him around. They lasted for looks like here about 10 total picks to get all 3 of them off the board. But other than that, I think Valencia probably drafted for need without looking at his team. It would be the only reason I take Keyshawn Vaughn ahead of some of these guys.
Yeah, he's got the clear path. But go ahead, Donny. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say I liked the Vaughn pick there, and that pick triggered me to start attempting some trade ups to either get the second or third copy of Vaughn. I liked him there quite a bit. He finished up at Vanderbilt. It was his college, and he's kind of a sneaky Dalvin Cook type of runner, and also really good in pass pro. And I'm not sure, Ronald Jones has really shown much there yet. So
he's terrible.
If he can, yeah, there it is. And when you got a 90-year-old quarterback back there, it's not crazy to think that kind of struggled to break out at first. Ronald Jones could get easily supplanted by this guy. So it's obviously not enough to put him above all these receivers that just went or anything like that. But I did have him at the top of this particular ladder rung for that reason. That, come outside of training camp, this could be your starting running back down there in a really good offense.
So how hard did you try to move up? Because it looks like the last Keyshawn Vaughn went 3 picks ahead of you.
No, it wasn't. I was having to, if I remember right, some of the best offers that I had seen was giving up my pick at 2-2 and my first pick in my second round pick rather in the 225 spot was I think the best offer that I still didn't accept. Obviously, that's what they were looking for.
That's expensive.
And we've seen that happen a couple of times in the second round, where in order to move up 5-10 spots, you swap picks and you get another, and you give up another second round pick. That seems steep to me, but that's the going rate in some cases, depending on who you're dealing with.
I think where I finally made that, or when I didn't make that move, I saw the guy that I eventually took. It looked like I was pretty clearly going to still get him, and the difference between my next pick, Mims, and Vaughn was not enough for that 225 pick to give it up. If Mims hadn't been falling that way, because I had Mims a decent chunk above, like Pittman, Higgins, and actually even Ruggs. So the gap between Vaughn and Mims was not very big. And when I was pretty sure I could still get him, I was going to be really happy with that pick.
And it looks like there was still a copy of Ayuk on the board as well, so you liked him better than that guy.
Yeah. Yep. So let's speed up to your pick there, Donny. After the Ruggs copies, we saw the first 2 copies of Higgins go. Mike of Udinese snagged a Vaughn copy. Everton takes Pittman at 145. Barcelona takes the last Vaughn copy, like we were just talking about. Then we had more Pittman and Higgins copies go. And Ayuk went to Mike at 201, who's a big 49ers fan, so that's no surprise to us. And that brings us to 202, where you had an Ayuk copy on the board left, but everybody else that was picked, all the copies were gone. And you started the run on Mims here. If we look the next 2 picks after you were Mims as well. So take us through that pick, Donny.
Yeah, I'll try not to gush too much, but I really do like this guy a lot. I think his route inventory is great. He was, to me, the star of the Senior Bowl. He just caught everything, ran a ton of routes, and just showed really good control. And I think that really shot him up a lot. And then the second part is where he went. He's a guy that can go up and win a contested ball. And I think that where he went, he's got a young quarterback who's actually going to throw those types of balls. He's one of the few young quarterbacks that are completely willing to throw a guy open and throw into a pass that he can't see completed yet. He's not looking for clear separation over the middle of the field. I think he's kind of one of the one of the more gunslinger types. And who's he going to compete with there? I think Perriman is going to go back to bust status after leaving that Arians offense. And then Crowder is good, but I think Crowder's more of a possession guy. I don't think he's going to compete for this number 1 spot. So I kind of like him in a similar way that a lot of guys like the now his name is escaping me because I'm on the spot. The N'Keal Harry to the Patriots last year, but I think he's got a better chance of really producing in year 1 and is more fantasy viable this year than even N'Keal Harry was going to the Patriots last year. So I was really thrilled when he dropped.
Okay, yeah, and it certainly seems like the right spot for him, and the 2 owners right after you certainly agreed too. But my concern with Mims, and it's probably not fair to him, but Baylor products just scare me. I never saw a Baylor product go off in the NFL, and Corey Coleman is the most recent guy to scare me. So was there any thought into him coming out of Baylor in that system that maybe made you hesitate before you took Mims, or is that not a concern to you?
No, and that's probably just more of my more budding interest in college. I've only started following college here probably the last 3 years or so, kind of learning more about it and using it in the context of fantasy. So for a lot of these guys, I really start digging into them kind of right before the NFL draft, and then after the NFL draft is where I really kind of dig into their production and don't know enough probably about the the college systems and past success out of college teams outside of your big teams that you're always hearing about, obviously. But I'm just more and more getting into that to kind of help my fantasy teams out.
Right. Fred, what do you think about Mims?
My only concern with Mims is the same question that I asked on Monday night. So I'll ask you, what do you think about Adam Gase and him destroying everything that is there is to be loved about football?
I think he'll get fired before my team is competing.
Good answer. Okay, that might
be week, and that might be week 3. Yeah, but no, huge concern. It's terrible. I think Robbie Anderson should absolutely be furious because he's way better than what he's worth right now, and they just didn't use him right.
Okay, yeah. So I think that highlights Mims, and I think you made the right call there, Donny, just based on how everyone drafted after you. But moving on to 205 and 206, Antonio Espanol takes 2 Packers players off the board. He takes Dylan at 205. Then I don't know if he traded up to 205 or not, but then he definitely traded up to 206 to get Love. So I don't know if he's a Packers fan, but he definitely likes the Packers picks. Fred, were you surprised with these two picks here?
So I'm not going to say I was surprised because I think the players on the board are all lumped together in a massive tier right here, and it's just whoever you like more. The thing that was more surprising to me, I think, is the cost of some of these move ups. I'm pretty sure 2-4, 2-5, and 2-6 were all traded today. Let me check my math on that. So 2-3 was traded yesterday for Evan Ingram. No, maybe not. Maybe I don't see those. I don't see those on the transaction list. So they got moved, but at another time. I was trying to. 2-5 got traded today, so that one. Or I'm sorry, that was yesterday as well. And 2-6 also got traded yesterday.
Yes, he moved into both these spots.
Yep.
And I'm gonna try to pull up the trades now. But to talk about the first one, this is one of the ones you mentioned where he had to give up a second round pick plus. So let's see.
So this was he gave up 224 and 241 to get 2-6 and 406.
Okay, I'm not even looking at that one. And I think Matt messed up the graphic here because he has Espanyol getting 205 and 241 for 215. That doesn't make any sense.
That was a different trade. That was Espanyol and Hanover. Jameis Winston in 15 for 5
Winston.
and 41, right.
215 and Winston. Okay. Wow. All right, so yeah, he traded up for these guys, but trades aside, Donnie, are these a shock to you right now, Dylan and Love at 205 and 206?
A little bit. I think I even put it in the chat that I was surprised to see, Dylan go before some of the other running backs that were coming available just because of, the love for Aaron Jones and how much that pick got hated on in the actual draft. But, I think, I think he could be useful. I think there's a chance that he could be the running back too this year if they let Jamal Williams go. They're both of those running backs are on contract years, and I think Jamal Williams is getting like $4 or $5 million on the last year of his contract. So, I mean, I can see it. I would have stayed away from it here. To me, it was a bit of a reach. But if you like the guy, you like the guy. I mean, he's huge. He's fast. He's kind of like a more athletic Eddie Lacy if you like that type, and it does fit what Matt LaFleur wants to do with that offense. So I'm excited about him as a Packer fan. I don't know that I'd be excited as a fantasy owner.
Yeah, and go ahead, Fred.
I was going to say the interesting thing to me about these moves and these picks was that he moved up to take the first copy of both of them. So there was no pressing need to pay what he paid. Maybe the other question is, was he trying to talk to other people 7, 8, 9 kind of thing and couldn't get anything done and just basically took what he could get because he wanted to move up and get the guys he wanted.
Right. Yeah. So I think those are fair concerns, especially on the fantasy side of the Packers, and maybe questionable of Antonio to trade, but I'm also a fan of trading up and getting your guy. He didn't have to worry about it. And as we look as the picks came up, Dylan started going. I mean, we had an Ayuk copy go right after to Wolverhampton. Leipzig started the run on Chenault with Dylan and Ayuk mixed into Chenault here. Mike, who already owned, who did Mike own? Ayuk takes Dylan and Chenault. Valencia takes Ayuk, and then Justin takes Dylan. And we did have a Zach Moss copy go in between, but then Fiorentina took Chenault. So it seems like most of the owners were in agreement that these were the tiers besides Love there. And AJ Dillon trading some height. And we even saw in the group me, owners were saying or comparing him to Derrick Henry, where LaFleur was before, and the size comparisons to him. So maybe if you're in a startup later, and maybe Dylan even shoots up the ranks, which is to me is crazy because Aaron Jones was so successful last year. Like he's a development pick more than a produce now pick.
I think he can catch passes better than people give him credit for. So I think that could be a big boon to his game as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that they run it in Green Bay, there's going to be 2 running backs, but it would certainly mean that Jamal Williams is out of the picture. But they love him in pass protection, so it's going to be a weird situation next year in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting is, he traded up for both of these guys, and if I trade up for 2 guys back to back like that, and I'm picking again in say 10 spots because he's on the clock right now. One of them's gone, the other one isn't. So he 50-50 shot there, ended up with one of them probably would have been gone by his next pick, and the other one now, of course, he traded up, and now the guy that he traded up for is available for him to make at this pick with. I don't think another copy of Love is gone yet, so. I think that's a good deal. He got his 2 guys, and one of them would have been gone for sure, and maybe the other one was there. But I think that's, for your quarterback that you want, it's a good trade.
Yeah, and he had a plethora of 2nd-round picks because he's like you said, he's on the clock right now with another 2nd-round pick. So he was full of second. I didn't even notice, but he was full of 2nd-round picks. Kind of snuck up on me.
Yeah. Him and Mike just had everything right. And Valencia's got 2 coming up as well.
Oh, interesting. And so, Fred, you have a pick here too, I see. And
I need to be careful about. I need to be careful about what I say because the guy I want is available, and I don't want to move up unless I have to.
Okay, so I do like. I was trying to trade up for Chenault. He's gone now. All 3 copies are gone. I forget if he was at Colorado or Colorado State, but I enjoyed watching him in college. So he's one of my guys that I've circled on my board, but I wasn't able to trade up and get him. Also, it's a need thing. My team construction, I don't need a receiver prospect, so I'm not willing to trade like a lot of value to get him. But that was the guy I had eyed. Fred, is there anyone worth talking about that got drafted that isn't still available that you'd like to talk about, or you want to move on?
No, I just think it's really interesting that, like you were saying about AJ Dillon, he traded up for the first copy, and then the next 2 went in the next 7-8 picks. So if he wanted him, it's funny. I kind of did the same thing myself, where I traded up to get the first copy of someone rather than try to trade up for someone who has now become obvious to everyone else. It just feels like if you're going to get the cheapest version of the 3, it's the first one rather than the last one.
Right. Okay, yeah, and it might be the way to go because it's probably the cheapest way to go because Justin of Hanover took the 3rd copy of Dillon, and he'll hold that 3rd copy of a player when he has a pick, and he'll ask you for a lot for it. So I think you have a point there, Fred. But Donny, do you have any players that have gone recently that you want to discuss before we move
on? Not that there aren't still some players out there. I've got some thoughts on a couple guys, but there's still some copies out there and guys that haven't even started to go yet. So I think I'm clear on thoughts of the draft so far that we're able to discuss. I don't want to get chastised again,
Right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So, we could review some trades that went. The trades get less juicy as the draft goes on, but as Fred mentioned earlier, the 203, which wound up being the 2nd copy of Mims, went straight up for Evan Ingram. So, Fred, we'll start with you. You were saying that you think you would rather have the 203 than Ingram, right?
Given that the scoring for this league is not pure TE premium, it's it's a small bump. I don't think Evan Ingram has proven that he can stay on the field long enough to make it worth that early 2nd-round pick for me. If he was getting a full 2 points per catch or something like that, that's enough to make him worth that pick for me. But I would almost in every case take a productive wide receiver over a tight end who's somewhere after tight end 5 or 6.
Yeah. And so it's really pick 17, right? The 203. So if pick 17 in a super flex or Evan Ingram, who was productive as a tight end but injured. And, I think last year, if you say startup in 2019, he was in the top 5. He was with O.J. Howard. I mean, God, I think he has more value than O.J. Howard now. And the Giants are definitely due for a bounce back. I think they had a lot of bad breaks last year with Daniel Jones and everything. But Donnie, what do you think? Do you like the 203 side better, or you like the Evan Ingram side here?
I was negotiating with the original Ingram owner for that 2-2 spot, and I was in a position where I knew that I wanted Mims, and we were talking about doing this trade for probably a half a round or so, and I just said, hey, if a guy falls, I'm not into this trade, but if he doesn't fall, then maybe I am. And when it finally got to it, Mims was still there, and we were talking about it, and I liked the Mims side of the trade quite a bit better than the Ingram side for the health concerns and just not necessarily needing a tight end. It feels like paying that pick for Ingram is paying top dollar, and I'm more of a fan of, in a non-tight end premium league, is trying to sell out on tight ends and bring in a younger one that can get you kind of a decent floor, not trying to get one of these more top shelf guys, especially one that's injury prone.
Yeah, and I guess I still see that ceiling, and I see why I think this could be a steal for Hamburg here. And I don't know. And like I said, I'm not sold on Mims, so maybe that's part of the reason why I kind of like the Ingram side better. But if I remember correctly, he did trade away Kelsey, and he didn't get that much for Kelsey. I think he got 2 first rounders. So he did have a tight end hole when he made this trade. So
they were late first rounders.
Yeah, and I don't. Evan of Hamburg didn't have a great year. I think he was last place in the Bundesliga. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. But if you get good value for a player that you think is going to break out, you could always sell that player for more later. So hats on him for going with his gut there.
He turned Kelsey into Ruggs and Higgins.
Yikes, that's rough.
So, when you talk straight, he got 2 first round picks. Yeah, he got two first round picks. What he did with them, I am not a fan of.
I think I wind up trading Julio for that, and I have Waller too late first. But God, now I'm wishing I would have just held on. I could have tried to trade Evan, and I think I would have liked having Kelsey on my team better than Waller.
Yeah.
Oh well. So do you guys have any trades that caught your eye that you want to discuss other than this one? I think I had one, and I'll pull it up in a second. But Donnie, any trades that caught your eye?
That Geis trade that was somewhat recent. The Geis, Kirk, somebody else for OBJ. Yeah. I think that one was a bit polarizing in the chat. I think, and I was on the side of the stack of players, not the OBJ side myself.
Right. So, and just to recap, Donnie, so Justin received Geis, Funchess, Christian Kirk, and the 212 pick, which was AJ Dillon, 2 Udinese, who received Odell Beckham Jr., and the 215, and the 215 was I think it was another copy of Dillon. So I think that's a wash. But yeah, so if you look at the picks for Odell Beckham, I think my concern, and I know you said you were on the side of the picks, Donnie, is that they're all like falling picks. Like Kirk's got to compete with Hopkins now. Funchess, I don't think is going to play a big role in Green Bay, and Geis has to recover from these injuries nonstop. So it's a bunch of falling assets for Odell Beckham Jr. for me, who's primed for a bounce back. So why would you think
Beckham's also a falling asset?
True, that's true. So there's a bunch of falling assets. But Donnie, so why do you like the players better than Beckham in this case?
Well, I'm probably inordinately high on Geis. I think that probably helps it out quite a bit. So a player I like a lot at a position that I value more than the wide receiver position. I get his injuries, but I think his injuries were unrelated and don't necessarily compound on one another. I think it's more of a bad luck case like Keenan Allen, where the injuries don't necessarily predict a future injury. It's just he has been injured the 2 times he's been on the field basically. But that year that he got drafted, he was the second overall pick in most drafts that year, right behind Saquon Barkley, because he had such a promising profile. And I think the times that you have seen him on the field, he's made some really great dynamic plays with very little NFL playing time. So I'm really personally excited for Geis. I like Kirk a lot. I like a really good weapon opposite of Kirk. I think that will actually increase what he's able to do. I don't think he's a true alpha, so I think that really improves his value as a wide receiver too, and I think he'll get plenty of use there. The Funchess is kind of a toss up there. I think he's competing for wide receiver 2 with an undrafted Alan Lazard, who I like a lot, but again, it's a guy that before his collarbone break was I think a $10 million receiver, and then broke his collarbone, didn't do anything, and obviously now got signed for much cheaper. So if he can stay healthy and see the field, he could easily be the Packers wide receiver too. It's not a stretch to see that happening. It's also not a stretch to see him cut, because his deal means he could get cut after training camp if he's not doing anything. So that's kind of a little bit of a lottery pick there. And then the moving the picks from 15 to 12 really doesn't make any difference to me. So obviously it sounds like they got the same player anyways.
Yeah.
Well, I need to correct you. They didn't get the same player.
Okay.
The 215 was Antonio Gibson, not AJ Dillon.
Oh, Mike already owned Dillon, so he must have picked him earlier.
Gotcha. So he traded away Geis and then drafted his backup.
That was the point I was going to make, is that there must be something here that Mike doesn't like about Geis, likes about Gibson, and therefore, I mean, obviously the organization is saying the same thing by their moves.
Yeah, but Fred, if you know Mike well enough, Mike's drafting for value. He's not drafting based on his beliefs on who's going to win the Redskins backfield. So I don't necessarily think he thought, oh, well, I'm going to make this trade because it makes sense with my believings on Geis not winning the backfield.
Oh no, I think it's entirely just a trade for value. You give up 3 quarters and get $1 in return. And I'm not even sure Funchess is worth a quarter. You could tell a story to use some phrasing that other podcasts use. You could tell a story that Devin Funchess is the receiver 2 in Green Bay this year. You could tell a story that Geis is the leading running back in Washington, and you could tell a story that Kirk is 1C to Hopkins 1A in an explosive offense. So if you believe in those guys, I'm not against it. It just I'm annoyed because I was also making overtures to Justin to get this copy of Beckham, and we couldn't come to a decision. And I felt like he accepted far less than we were talking about amongst ourselves yesterday. At least in my opinion. Yeah,
we'll have to leave that alone because I know Justin doesn't really like his trade discussions being.
The players involved aren't the story. It's just that I think the ones in my mind, what I was offering him was worth more than what he got.
Yeah. All right. So I'm moving on to another trade that caught my eye, and I will pull up the screen momentarily. We had Espanyol receiving Michael Gallup, and in return, Deportivo received Robert Woods in a straight up 1-for-1. And I guess with the addition to CeeDee Lamb in Dallas, a lot of people are kind of spooked on Gallup retaining a starting role where he's getting a lot of looks in a new McCarthy system there in Dallas. Meanwhile, Robert Woods, he's probably at 1A and 1B with him and Kupp in Los Angeles, but he's getting a little bit older, I guess. But I mean, what, he's 28, 29? I don't think he's that old.
He's in his prime.
Yeah, exactly. I love Robert Woods. So for me, this is a no-brainer win for Deportivo because he gave up an asset that not many people were willing to trade for, and got a solid starting flex position for him. And Fred, I'll let you go first since you said something. You agree with me there?
I like both of these guys. I think before the NFL draft, this trade would be laughed at as massively undervalue for who Gallup is and what he's shown. I think Robert Woods' entire career is the Rodney Dangerfield of the NFL. He has just been slow and steady and growing over time. He's on his third team now or second team, and just keeps getting it done and improving. So who do I want to win now? It's Robert Woods. Who do I want maybe next year or beyond? I need to see what Dallas does, and if you're not willing to wait out Gallup to see how their offense shakes out and where everyone slots in, this is a nice get.
Donnie, what do you think about this?
I'm on the Woods side of this one too. I think Gallup showed some flashes, but I think at this point Woods is proven. Cooks is out of there, so there's one less decent receiver. I think he went to Houston, so I like Woods in that offense quite a bit more. I think I do like Gallup, but and I'm not a huge fan of just straight 1-for-1 same position swaps in general. I don't think I've actually ever participated in one, but I can see why both of these teams made the trade for sure. I do think McCarthy really likes to run the ball. They've just paid Zeke a ton of money. They had CeeDee Lamb fall to them. It's a lot of chips stacked against Gallup, who's going to be there for several years.
Yeah, that 1-to-1 trade is hard to pull off because you've got to find a guy who values the guy you're giving up more than the one they own. And generally, when somebody owns a player, they're high on that guy or higher on them than the rest of the league.
Yeah,
right.
Truly a unique situation that you don't see too often. I fully agree with you guys there. Is there any other trades that we need to discuss before we start talking about Donnie's beautiful team?
How about
were you part of the
Curtis Samuel for a future second?
Okay. Do you have those details in front of you, Mr. Fred?
Yep.
Go ahead. Announce the trade.
Juventus gave up Curtis Samuel, and Roma gave up a second-round pick and a future second. A late second-round pick, 245.
Okay. And which side do you like more there?
Give me the player. You're getting two late second round, so you're talking about the 31st player off the board for a guy who, entering his third year, has flashed in the NFL. I don't think he's really broken out, but I think he has a better opportunity and better potential than what you're going to get at 31 overall and completely random next year.
Yeah. I had an offer on the table to give up one of my late firsts to get a future second and Samuel, and I was contemplating that, although I did wind up making bigger moves. Knowing I don't, Luigi's kind of all over the place because he traded for a bunch of picks and now he's trading them all away, so I don't know what he's doing over there in Roma. But Donnie, what do you think? Do you agree with Fred here that you'd rather have Curtis Samuel over the late second and the future second?
I think I still go with the Samuel side here, but it is not the strongest trade that's been made this week for Curtis Samuel, because on Tuesday Samuel went straight up for a 2021 second.
That was the first one I saw. Okay, so there were two of them then.
On Tuesday, middle of the night, probably a drunk trade. Curtis Samuel went for a 2021 second.
Oh my God, I didn't even realize that.
So I mean, I still think I take this trade, but I like Samuel a lot. I like that offense, and I think there's also a chance that he gets traded to a wide receiver needy team. So I think whether he stays there or he gets traded, I think he'll have a decent year.
I found the trade.
There is a lot there, though.
I pulled the trade up. Genoa received Samuel in return for a 2021 second.
So this was actually the one I meant to point out, but when I was scrolling through the list, I saw the other one. I was like, oh, I must have misread it. So yeah. So yeah, exactly. You pointed out the bigger steal in this sense. This one's way obviously a great deal for Samuel.
True.
Yeah. How do you feel about the 2021 picks in general, knowing that the college season is in jeopardy? What does that do to your opinion of the 2020 first? I've turned down a lot of offers that have included 2021, not first, but picks in general because of just hard to value them personally. What do you think?
I'm of two minds on this, and I think one side says nothing changes. The same players are going to be there. They may not have the entire NCAA season under their belts, or a full year of working out and everything else. But as far as the NFL is concerned, the guys who are coming out, they probably have enough film on to make educated moves to draft them. And there's always guys that break out that are not drafted in any Devy drafts at, before the season starts, and then come out of nowhere. I think the consensus 101 this year, Edwards Hilaire, wasn't drafted in any of my Devy leagues last year because nobody thought much of him. That's the kind of thing that we may end up missing out on in a shortened or weakened season.
Okay, so I happen to not know where to go with these 2021 picks, but I lean towards the side of the guys are going to be there. They're still going to have the physical tools, and I think NFL coaches can still get the most out of them, even if they don't have the full college experience, because all those guys are going to have at least 1 year of college in them, probably 2. So I think that even if they don't play or they don't play the same way, it's still going to be I don't think it's going to be as stacked as this current class, but I think it'll be a regular class.
Who has the breaking news song or chime? Because we just had a trade go through.
Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
Yep. Leicester and Espanyol traded with each other. The big pieces were the 217 for the 226. So Leicester gave up 226, 302, and 426, and picked up 217 and 311.
Moved up in the second, moved down in the third.
So now he is active on the clock. And based on the only player I think on the board with one copy left, I think we can say who he's going after, but we'll see if it happens.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, we don't want to ruin it just in case he's not. So we'll let Lester make that pick. But yeah, I think that was some good discussion. So the last thing we want to do is we want to go over Donny's team, as we like to pick apart our guests as they come on. And that Donny did not have the season he hoped for. I really hope you weren't hoping for 2 wins, 17 losses, and 3 draws with no cup success. Donny, I'm going to pull up your team right now, and we'll let you go over how you did in 2019, and we'll go from there. So why don't you start listing some of your top assets?
Yeah, well, I think obviously if we want to go top assets, I do like my top 3 running backs. I already talked about Geis, so I'm an owner. And then I also personally have Jonathan Taylor and Miles Sanders as top 10 running back dynasty assets. So I'm a big fan of the running back stable. Not a ton of depth if any guys gets hurt there. Penny took a hit today with the a somewhat a slighted hit with the Hyde signing there. I don't really particularly fear Hyde, and I don't think Rashad Penny was going to be ready to go at the start of the season. Not a big Carson truther, believer, or fan. I think he still can't shake fumble problems, and I think he would lose that job out eventually to Penny. Penny got healthy, but I like the top three there. I made a trade with involving Tyreek Hill. I had Hill on the team. I think I acquired him last year. I got Hill and somebody else. I don't recall who, but him and somebody else for Dalvin Cook, who I traded away last year. And then I took Hill and turned Hill into essentially Galladay, Kirk, and Darius Slayton, which I liked, getting a little bit more depth at that position versus just having Hill, who I honestly don't even trust to stay out of trouble. Dynamic player for sure. But a singular player where I think any one of those three that I got could put up wide receiver one numbers. I do like Christian Kirk a lot. I think he was number 2 in amongst wide receivers for snap share last year. He was in there like 98.5% of the snaps, running routes, most of those snaps. So I think they like him a lot, and I don't think he has a lot of competition there outside of obviously Nook going there now. So feeling pretty good about the wide receiver core. Obviously Juju severely underperformed last year, which hurt quite a bit, and is one of the big reasons I picked second overall. And then tight end, I like Jonnu a lot, but obviously I need to kind of bolster that position a little bit because you can't just have one there.
Yeah. So Donny, I'll start by saying you had some real unfortunate assets last year. At the start of 2019, you look at a team that has Nick Foles in a new shiny new job, Big Ben, who's just a consistent player, Geis, this up-and-coming running back that's going to have a great year, and Juju Smith-Schuster with the door wide open for him, top 5 receiver lock. You're looking at this team, and you're like, yeah, this team's going to compete. And all of a sudden, you're in week 3, and you're like, I have no chance of winning anything this year. It was like right away. It was instant.
So I was looking at his 2019 roster, and he had 6 guys on IR, and they were fairly decent named players. That's just being snake bit. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I guess the only thing you can say is at least you didn't draft Andrew Luck.
No, I had Brissett, and I flipped him for picks as well, just because he wasn't going to be enough to carry the team at all after the other quarterbacks went down. So I did get obviously lucky with drafting Brissett in like the 13th round or something, and then Luck retired, and I immediately had a starter in the 13th round, which was value, but he wasn't very good. So I ended up trading him away while he still had a slice of value.
Yeah, true. You made out. You got out when you could. But the one thing that we need to talk about, Donny, before we even look at your outlook into 2020, at the 102, you shook the league up. You took Jonathan Taylor, and I think everyone expected you to go Burrow, even though everyone says like, oh yeah, in Superflex you could go Taylor or Tua or even Edwards-Helaire, and you took Taylor. So talk us through your thinking on taking Taylor at 102.
I just think that aside from Saquon Barkley, we haven't seen a guy with this profile since like Adrian Peterson. I think he's he could be a generational player. There was nothing going in that offense outside of Jonathan Taylor in Wisconsin, and he had a worse offensive line. Wisconsin's a good offensive line, but still a less offensive line than LSU had, and still with that the crazy offense that they had at LSU, he still put up more yards per carry, even though they knew he was coming. And then he goes out and he runs a sub 4.4, which is just insane for how massive he is. He's got decent hands. I think he's just one of those generational players that you can't pass up. I threw out the idea that I wanted to trade down. I was picking second. I didn't know what your guys' appetite for getting the clock started was going to be. So I didn't set it for very long. I think I waited 20 minutes for some offers, but I would have only honestly traded down to where I knew I could still get him unless I got a massive haul, which wasn't really what was being offered. I got a couple offers there. So.
Okay. Yeah. And I love that you took your guy there. And you like you said, if you traded down more than 3 spots, there was a chance that Taylor went. So you couldn't risk that. But the one thing that kind of shocked me, and maybe it's because this class was so stacked. When you looked at running backs like Barkley and Zeke, they went, with what, 4th overall, 6th overall, and Taylor went in the 2nd round. So I agree with you that Taylor has a great amount of talent. That I don't think the NFL views him the same way they viewed Zeke and Barkley coming out of college.
No, but I don't think that if Zeke were to be drafted or Barkley were to be drafted next year, I don't think they would either. What did we get? Our first running back in this class didn't go till the very end of the first round. I think if Saquon Barkley were to be introduced into the pool next year, he would probably also be a late first, early second guy. It just seems as though there's been, kind of since those picks, a shift in the position where everybody that is either drafted high or extremely paid a running back, it hasn't gone well. So I think there's been a shift in that position since those moves were made. Zeke was both drafted high, then paid highly, and the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs last year. The Giants took him overall and got, crucified for it. Sure, he's the best running back out there. I don't think anybody questions that, but it hasn't made them a successful team. They haven't made the playoffs since drafting him either.
That's a good point. Fred, what do you think about either Jonathan Taylor in a whole or Donnie's decision to take Jonathan Taylor?
So I'm going to frame this in a slightly different context. Last year, Donnie traded throughout the startup draft. He made looks like 6 or 7 trades, and then throughout the season, he was not one of the most active players, but he made another 6 or 7 trades to change his luck, to move some players. Like he talked about moving Brissett. He talked about some things that he did. He traded away Gardner Minshew when he could get something for him. So this is how you build a team for a large league. You can't just sit around and wait for things to fall into your lap. The reason I'm saying this is because I only see one trade in 2020, and it was the Tyreek Hill trade that he just mentioned, where he got a fantastic haul for this player. In that sense, taking your running back at 102 in a super flex league is leaving money on the table. You could drop down to 7 or 8, given the thirst for quarterbacks in this league, and still get the guy you want. You may not think you're getting fair value for the pick, but getting something at all is I don't want to say wasting the pick. It's better than wasting the pick, but you didn't waste the pick. You got a very good player. I just think you could have ended up with a little bit more in your pocket.
Yeah, I should have waited. I think I was excited to get the draft started. I figured a lot of other players wanted to, and even in texting with some guys afterwards, I had realized that I should have, instead of just putting the feeler out there like, "Hey guys, I wouldn't mind moving back here." I should have given offers to everybody that I could have mathematically still got Jonathan Taylor and at least seen if there was anything there proactively. I wish I would have done that, honestly, because I probably could have gotten something there, knowing that I was never going to take Burrow there. And I was also not going to trade back to miss Jonathan Taylor either. So I should have felt out where those were. And I didn't know that Jonathan Taylor was going to be the next player gone. It could have also gone Burrow, Tua, Hilaire, then Taylor, because there's some leagues where Hilaire is going above Taylor. So, but I was not going to take a chance at not getting him. I would have traded down to the 4th spot after the first Burrow pick went, but that would have been all the farther that I would have gone.
Yeah. Did you see? I mean, based on what you just said, a few minutes ago, you saw a fairly significant difference between Burrow, or not between Burrow, but between Taylor and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
For sure.
Yeah. I think the dynasty community is leading that way now too. At first, I think everyone was excited with the Chiefs situation, and then it kind of went back to, well, Taylor's got all the tools still.
Yep.
But I don't think, God, even though I just, basically said, like, why wouldn't he go in the first round if he's a talent? I still love Taylor as a talent. And the one thing you didn't have going for you, Donnie, which I don't think anyone would hold against you, is that a lot of the guys in this league have a lot of experience in 16-team super flexes. A lot of us actually share a few leagues where we have that. So we know the quarterbacks are going earlier than any ranking site has them, because that's what happens. If even in the startup, you're like, wait, did Matt Stafford just go in the first round of the startup? Like, what? Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to bring that up, Fred. But like, it's something where I don't know. I don't think your team needed like a generational QB, but in a few years, if you don't have another QB on this roster, you might be regretting not getting a QB.
Well, I mean, the other question is at 202, does he then grab one of the next tier, quarterbacks after Herbert and Burrow and Tua are off the table? All the entire next generation or the next tier are available to him. He loved Mims, and he talked about that earlier. So, I can't fault you because I did the same thing. I went and got the guys I liked.
And all the copies of the QBs are still there, and he has a pick coming out.
Right, and
I think my strategy will be closer to, I mean, these quarterbacks. I mean, even the quarterbacks that went high in the first, they are not guaranteed to help my team much this year. I think based on where I'm seeing some of these values of some of these players in this league, I'm probably going to lean towards trading for an aging out the door quarterback who's still putting up a decent floor, but isn't going to light the roof on fire. I think that's probably going to have to be my strategy to be competitive here. And I know they still cost a premium here, but based on what I've seen some trades involving some of these guys go, I think for my valuation, I think those guys will be attainable for me.
Is this your first Superflex league?
No, I've done some other ones. I think it's probably the most competitive and the first Superflex and 16-team league, I believe.
That combination adds an entirely different wrinkle to either one of them on their own. I am hearing my words coming out of your mouth the first couple of years I played a Superflex league. So I'm right there with you for where I was at your experience.
Yeah. So looking at your outlook for 2020 here, I'm just going to ignore the one QB start you have to make, which will probably be Big Ben and Smith, Jonathan Smith, who's going to be your tight end, right? So you have 6 spots to fill in that. Unless Foles wins the job in Chicago and you keep your roster as is, it's going to be 6, between the running back and receiver, you have to start one each. But you definitely excel in those spots, at least for now, with Miles Sanders and Jonathan Taylor leading your running backs, with Geis being a potential another running back that could shine as your top running backs. And then at receiver with Juju Smith-Schuster and Kenny Golladay leading those 2 spots. You have one more spot with Slayton, Mims, Christian Kirk. You'll be able to find a starter each week. I definitely like your receivers and running backs probably more than 2/3 of the league here. I think you definitely have a chance to turn this into something. And like you said, you do have trades that you're going to be considering. So I like your roster construction here, and I think you'll be at least a top half team. I know all the guys listening will murder me if I say middle of the pack. So I think you're going to be in the top half and competing for a spot in Champions League coming 2021. Fred, what do you think about this team?
I don't see it. I don't see an 8th starter. It's going to be guys who you don't want to rely on every week, or guys who will put up great weeks. You just hope that you choose that week to have them in your lineup. Like you were saying, he's got Ben, Sanders, Taylor. He's got his tight end. That's 4. And then he has to play 4 wide receivers. He's got two players from Pittsburgh. He's got two players from Indianapolis. I'm sorry, two players from Arizona. And I guess Zach Pascal still counts. So he's got. It's just Galladay, Juju, and then he's got to pick two more guys from that list of 10 or 12 players. But which one is it going to be? Just wait and see who breaks out. Who's got the better matchup. There's not a guaranteed starter there.
Okay, well, Donny, we'll let you have the last words on your team. Two conflicting opinions there. How do you see your outlook in 2020?
Yeah, I think I must like Slayton and Kirk quite a bit more than Fred does. But if you don't like those two guys and you don't trust rookies like Mims or anybody else that I choose to draft coming up, then yeah, you got a clear drop off after the third wide receiver there. I do think Nick Foles is a much better quarterback for the offense and in general than Mitch Trubisky. So I do think he will end up winning the starting job there. And obviously, a lot of the success of my team hinges upon that. It kind of gets rid of that who is your fourth wide receiver dilemma that Fred was just talking about. So I think that Foles becoming a starter will potentially be the difference between a just below average team and an average to competing team, depending on how the rookie picks hit. Between that and guys hitting, I think those are the two biggest lottery hits, if you will.
Yep. Erik, has the schedule for the 2020 season been compiled yet?
No, Matt and I are holding off until we know the NFL schedule is going to be regular, because fortunately with this league, a lot of the structure comes with the weeks being that they play 1 through 17 or 1 through 16, really. With the 17th week, we don't want to have any games have any meaning. So we are holding off. We're going to, I mean, we have our structure. So there's no, it's not, it's going to be all random. You play each team twice a year, but right now there's no schedule locked because we think that there's a chance the schedule might change in the NFL.
Now, forgive me.
They also pushed the buys later.
They did. Yep. And there's at least one really late bye week this year.
13, yeah.
Forgive me because I mostly ignored the schedule last year because my team was not competing. I mean, I submitted a lineup, but I didn't pay attention to who I was playing. Or we have doubleheader weeks throughout the season with some of the various cups and competitions. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So my only concern for Donny here is that he gets caught with his quarterbacks in a bye week on a doubleheader week or something that is just massively against his his team composition, and
you get two bye weeks instead of one.
Yeah. And I'm in the same boat here because I don't even have two starting quarterbacks on my roster today. Assuming he gets Nick Foles as a starter, I've only got Kyler Murray and Scrubs, so I can't even argue that he's better off than I am, or I'm better off than he is.
Yeah. Yeah. So Donny, it's going to be interesting to see it. I think because you're right there, say Geis does go off the first few weeks, I think you're in a good spot to pivot towards a team where you're buying that older quarterback. But say Geis goes down again with an injury and Juju isn't returning to form, you have enough value where you can sell off for one more year, and your team is going to have tremendous value in the next year because you're all young, up and coming guys here. Besides the quarterback.
Yeah. The last copy of Antonio Gibson just went, and that was one guy I was going to mention earlier. Is someone that I was definitely interested in, especially because of Geis, and in that third copy just went to Leicester there.
Well, I see you were at 225. He was not going to get to you because I have picked 222.
Nice. You would have taken him there?
Yes. He didn't feel it was worth it to trade up for, but I like him.
Yeah. I wouldn't have traded up for him either. But if he was there, that was a guy that I definitely liked. I liked him more than Dylan. I liked him more than Moss, and I think only one copy of Moss went, and now the three Gibsons went. So I liked him better than the two running backs that preceded him in the draft.
Yeah. It's certainly a spot where I can see him evolving into a role quickly, especially because with the Redskins just being all out of shape. I don't think they're going to be a good team for a while. I think they're kind of chaotic in leadership and in assets, and I don't know. I feel bad for Redskins fans. I'll put it that way.
It's been rough. And it all starts with their owner and GM. I mean, it's not great up there either. So it's rough.
Hey, at least I got rid of the GM, so we can't fire the owner. Gibson appears to be the guy who, outside of the top players in the draft, seems to be moving up draft boards or ADP wise more than anybody I've seen in the last few weeks. I did a couple of early drafts right after the NFL draft, and he was not going in this range. And there's a couple of running backs that are on the board, haven't been touched yet, that were consistently going ahead of him 2-3 weeks ago, and they're not today.
Yeah. Hey, in our Star Wars league, he got bid up.
Yes, I was not expecting that, and I thought I was going to get him for a song because he kept not. Well, first off, he kept not getting nominated, and then when he did, I was like, I'll wait. Nobody wants him. Everybody wanted him.
Right.
So he's got kind of a Joe Mixon type, 6 foot, 228, 4.39, super fast.
Yeah,
he's a very intriguing player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you don't believe in Geis.
Yeah. So we've talked about the draft. We talked about Donny's team. We talked about trades. That's all I have for you guys tonight. So we'll get into our closing thoughts. Fred, any last thing you want to discuss before we depart?
Yeah. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 picks before mine, and I will stab anyone who takes the guy I want.
So who's the guy you want?
Redacted.
Oh yeah, he's great. I love that guy. I hope you get him. But
is there any copies of him gone in, or do you got all 3 of them yet?
Let me see. So I actually there's a couple players that are on my list. At least one of them has been taken already. One or more copies
left.
Right.
And the only reason I say that is there's 4 picks. If there was all 3 players available, all 3 copies available, there's 4 picks ahead of you, but 2 of them are the same player, which would mean that all 3 of these guys need to take your guy.
Right. And it could happen. I'm cautiously optimistic. Hopefully at least one of these teams forgets that they have a draft pick and they time out and get a tight end or something.
No, it's not going to happen. We're not timing out here. We're going to all draft responsibly, and heed Fred's warning because he's going to stab you if you take his guy, who he won't tell you who that is. But thanks for that, Fred. Even though that helps no one. Donny, you have any closing thoughts?
No, this has been really fun. Love the chat and just kind of all the engagement there and the back and forth between both friendly banter and jokes, and then the actual, really good football discussion in there. And this was a lot of fun. So, of course, thanks for having me. The draft's been fun. I'm excited about it. I'm looking at my board, and I think a guy that I would have been super happy to take at the 2-2 spot is going to drop down to this 225 spot for me. So I'm excited about that. And hopefully continue to build up a decent core and go shore up some holes at tight end and quarterback, and actually do a little competing and not be picking at the top again next year.
Yeah.
Godspeed.
Yeah. So for everyone here, unfortunately, I guess Mike couldn't make it. We always love to have him, but I'm sure he'll be on soon. We'll sign off, and we'll talk to you with some more draft recap soon. Thanks.